On November 13th, 2023 at 4:27 a.m. Eastern U.S. time. Calculate that for your own time zone. We've got an extra transformative, extra deep, and extra weird new moon in Scorpio. We're going to get into why this one is so extra Scorpio, but there's some pretty amazing things both with the actual astrology and then taking the deep dive into the Sabian symbols and then looking at just how precisely this new moon in Scorpio affects Israel and Palestine. It's actually pretty trippy. So we'll get into all of that. I want to start with the basics first. So one of the reasons that this particular new moon in Scorpio is extra Scorpio is because one of its co-rulers, Mars, actually conjuncts the new moon very closely, within about 2 degrees. So that's unusual. Mars is not even always in Scorpio at the time of a Scorpio new moon. To have it so tightly conjunct is a big deal. It's also opposing Uranus and Taurus pretty exactly at that time. So we've got this extra intensity happening where the kind of the warrior, that soldier, that, god of war is opposing Uranus, the rebel, in Taurus. And so that you would expect would cause a lot of tension. In a basic, normal new moon in Scorpio, we might expect to see on the negative side an uptick in jealousy, an uptick in revenge, kind of that scorpion's tail stinger, getting back at enemies. We could see sexual taboos. We could see both an attraction to and a fleeing from intimacy. Scorpio is the sign that is most fearful of intimacy, but also most craving of intimacy. So there's this tension there always, and Scorpio is known both as the keeper of secrets, both secrets of themselves, but also other people's secrets. Being able to keep things hidden. Pluto, the other ruler of Scorpio, is associated with the underworld. And so we do tend to get on the negative side of things, kind of more the seedier elements of life. And again, with that Mars conjunction opposite Uranus, on the surface of this new moon, we might expect to see some pretty volatile, riotous, not happy stuff. On the more positive side of Scorpio, this is the sign of transformation. This is the phoenix rising from its own ashes. This is the sign of death and rebirth. As I mentioned, a sign of intimacy. It can be a sign of shared resources. And so we've got this kind of polarizing energy always in Scorpio. This kind of burn your bridges kind of energy, start everything over, burn the whole thing down. That kind of energy coupled with that Mars-Uranus opposition, again, we might anticipate that this could kind of pop off and be extra volatile. Now, we've got a nice trine coming from Neptune in Pisces. That's another water sign, and it's a supportive energy. The trine is not exact. It's off by about 5 degrees or so, but it harmonizes with these energies. And so that Neptune energy could soften some of the Mars-Uranus opposition energy, and the Neptune trine Mars energy is often associated with being able to bring fantasy into reality. So Neptune, the planet of dreams, the planet of the unconscious, and then Mars, that planet of action, the warrior. So we could see a return of the sacred warrior. We could also just see extra enhanced manifestation, extra magic. If you are someone that makes intentions at the time of the new moon, this is going to be an extra magical, extra potent time to make them. With that Uranus opposition, we've got the potential for really radical, sudden change. And then with that nice harmonious trine from Neptune, we've got this watery energy to create a flow that works with our personal will and aligns that somehow with the collective. So there is potential, but I want to say on the surface, there's a lot of volatility. When we start looking into some other objects that are conjuncting this new moon, it gets even deeper, even more Scorpio, and also the potential for change really rises. So I'm going to put up the chart here. You can see that Ceres, which is the Roman equivalent of the Greek goddess Demeter, the mother of Proserpina or Persephone, depending on which system you're using. Of course, that story is very connected with Pluto, Scorpio, and Hades, because the daughter, Persephone, was kidnapped and taken into the underworld. That's how we get winter, was Ceres or Demeter's grief, mourning for the loss of her child. But then when Persephone returns, or when Proserpina returns, we get spring. And so there is this death and rebirth energy extra embedded. This is Ceres in Scorpio conjunct that new moon. And so again, that Scorpio energy, that Scorpio kind of story of going really deep into the underworld and then coming back out a transformed being. When Persephone comes out of Hades, she is a queen. She has become the queen of the underworld. And so yes, there's trauma associated with this, but there's also a sense of empowerment and extreme transformation. There are some people that read that story as kind of a coming of age story for Persephone, Proserpina, that maybe Ceres, Demeter was a little too overbearing, kind of the mother that wouldn't let go. And so there is this potential for rebirth and renewal where you really come into your own. So that again is nicely trined by Neptune in Pisces. And then we've got this other thing, which is one of these mind-blowing synchronicities, where Deucalion is at 25 degrees Scorpio, so really very exact in terms of the trine with Neptune. For those that don't know, Deucalion was actually kind of like the Greek equivalent of Noah. So Prometheus, Deucalion's father, warned him that there was going to be a coming flood, and then Deucalion and his wife both prepared for this. They were the only survivors, and then their progeny kind of repopulated the earth. So this is one of many worldwide great flood myths, but it's embedded here, and it's nicely trined by the god of water, by the god of the sea. So remember this, because this is going to come up later when we start looking at the Sabian symbols, but it's here. It's in there. And with that Mars in Scorpio opposite Uranus and Taurus, we've also got the potential for a big storm. So Uranus, the god of lightning, the god of storms, is opposing this new moon, but then Neptune, the god of water, trining it. So there is this extra energy of, whoa, things are not going to be the same. There's something is moving with this new moon. Something is potentially going to be knocked down or rejected or cleansed away. But in any case, this is a trigger for radical transformation. So I mentioned that the Sabian symbols kind of undercut some of this sort of more surface level astrology. So I've got the glasses on already because I'm going to actually be reading quite a few Sabian symbols this time. So the first one is for the actual new moon point. We always round up, so it's between 20 and 21 degrees. We go to 21 Scorpio. And the Sabian symbol for that is obeying his conscience, a soldier resists orders. Keynote, a readiness to face the results of a refusal to follow the authoritarian patterns of an aggressive society. Society in this situation seems to be all-powerful, yet the individual need not be spiritually bound even if imprisoned. He can still display inner freedom and prove himself an individual. So we've got this soldier energy, and it just happens to be that Mars, the god of war, is very close to that point. Again, that is rare. This is like this odd synchronicity happening in the sky right now. But the symbol for the new moon, it takes into account that war energy, that soldier energy, but instead of rebelling, instead of like intensifying the destructive energy, this soldier that's part of the new moon is refusing unconstitutional orders, refusing authoritarian orders, refusing to play, that stir the pot warmonger game and saying, no, I'm going to follow my conscience. So that's a big deal. But then it gets even weirder. We look at the Mars point. So Mars, again, god of war, the warrior, the aggressor oftentimes. The Sabian symbol for the Mars point is Scorpio 23. A rabbit metamorphoses into a nature spirit. Keynote: the raising of animal drives to a higher level, whether it is the sexual desire for a progeny or aggressiveness, the instinctual urge can be raised to a new level. The course can become subtle through a process of transubstantiation. So again, this is the Mars point, and we're hearing about sexual desire for a progeny or aggressiveness. Both of those happen to be kind of more negative energies associated with Mars, kind of that passion energy, but it's the passion that just wants its own energy to be pushed forward. Instead of that level playing out, the Sabian symbol indicates that somehow that energy is transformed, it's transmuted, it's transubstantiated into something entirely different. We're talking about the difference between playing things out on just the physical base level versus the higher spiritual level. Transubstantiation is actually a religious term most often associated with Christianity. It's kind of like the bread and wine getting turned into the body and blood of Christ. So there's like a magical energy there, which is very Scorpio, a sign of alchemy. But it takes this energy of the base, the aggressive, the kind of animal primal instinct, and turns it into something higher. It turns it into something more pure. So, okay, we've got the new moon in Scorpio, ruled by Mars, conjunct Mars, that warrior energy, but in both degrees, both the new moon and the Mars degree, there's this idea of that energy somehow being shifted, being changed at its very nature into a higher spiritual level. So, pretty cool potential, but we're not done. Then we look at the Uranus point, Uranus in Taurus, and the Sabian symbol for that one, you would expect, right? Uranus in Taurus, opposite Mars, you'd expect, hey, revolution, we're breaking out, right? Let's kick out the jams. We're not going to take it anymore. Instead, we have a Sabian symbol that very much suggests peace. So this one, Taurus 22, white dove flying over troubled waters. Keynote: the spiritual inspiration that comes to the individual in the overcoming of a crisis, a reward to the faithful. So again, this whole thing has this very spiritual nature that is implying the spiritual warriorship. So if you are a light worker, if you are someone who's been very upset about all of the tension in our world, the energies that are embedded sort of secretly in this new moon suggest extreme potential for transmutation and actually shifting that energy into peace. So a white dove flying over troubled waters, that's kind of a universal symbol for peace. But then we go back to that Deucalion story, that flood energy, that flood story tying into Noah's Ark, and that flood. So after the storm, that Uranian lightning bolt and the Neptunian god of the sea, flood everything energy that is working very closely in harmony with this particular new moon. After that, after Noah had spent 40 days and 40 nights on his ark with the, crashing waves and all of it, seemed like things had maybe calmed down, so he sent out a raven first, and the raven flew back and forth, and that flight kind of dried out all the waters. And then Noah sent a dove out, and initially the dove couldn't find anywhere to perch and, came back. So Noah waited 7 more days and sent the dove back out, and the dove returned with an olive branch. So a dove carrying an olive branch is kind of like the most universal symbol for peace. But in the case of Noah's flood, the dove returning with the olive branch indicated that there was land, like there, trees were peeking out, and he was able to pluck off an olive branch and bring it back to Noah. So then Noah waited 7 more days and then released the dove. And when it didn't return for that second time, he knew it was safe to leave the ark to, repopulate the earth with himself and his children and all the species that he had saved on the ark. And so again, we've got this kind of wild energy embedded in the Sabian symbol, embedded in the trans-Neptunian object, the asteroids. All of it seems to be taking us deeper and deeper into a potential for extreme transformation. So this can occur on the collective level. It is most likely to occur on the collective level if we tend to our own inner level of transformation. And so how can you work with these energies if you've had really deep toxic emotions that have just needed to be purged, needed to be cleared away, like crying's not going to do it. You need to have like a worldwide flood to do it, metaphorically. That energy is on offer for this new moon in Scorpio. We can use that energy within ourselves to just totally clear stuff out. On a personal note, we just had our inner plumbing all redone, like in our house. And it just, the timing of that doesn't seem accidental. I've also had a lot of dreams over the past few years about a giant storm and people kind of hanging out in community centers and having a picnic or having a celebration as, all this stuff is going on around. So I've talked before about multiple timelines. I feel like this is one of those, junctures where very widely different energies are possible. Now, I did say that I was going to talk about Israel and Palestine because this new moon's degrees that are involved are uncanny exact hits on both Israel and Palestine's charts. So again, not getting political here. I don't want to, I'm against all wars. I don't want any genocides anywhere, but this, you have to look at this if you're an astrologer. So the ascendant for this chart that I pulled for Washington, D.C. happens to conjunct the October 14th solar eclipse in Libra, the new moon solar eclipse in Libra, also conjuncts Israel's natal ascendant at 23 degrees Libra. The south node, Karma, is right there at 24 degrees Libra. So that's all ascendant stuff, both the Washington, D.C. ascendant at the time of the new moon in Scorpio and Israel's natal ascendant. So that's there. That implies that Washington's decisions may have some kind of impact for Israel. On the descendant, we've got Eris, the goddess of discord, so war kind of, right there, and the north node at 24 degrees Aries, and of course Israel's natal descendant. That's the cusp of the house of relationships and known enemies. So again, with Eris there, like something was going to come up for Israel at this time, just like destiny level, warlike stuff, discord. So that's happening. But then the new moon in Scorpio brings in Palestine's natal sun, which is at 22 degrees Scorpio. So just a couple degrees away from exact with this new moon in Scorpio. Israel's natal Chiron, the wound, is also at that point. Right there, same point. And then we've got at the Uranian opposition point, we've got Israel's natal sun at 23 degrees Taurus. And so Israel's identity, Israel's natal sun, and Palestine's identity, Palestine's natal sun, they're always in tension. They're opposite each other all the time. And then with Chiron, Israel's Chiron, right next to the Palestine sun, there's pain. Like there's pain and wounding just in the nature of this entire relationship. But cosmically, it's up right now. And we're seeing that as this, extreme discord and war that has the potential to pop off as, a total World War III with all kinds of countries involved. But again, I want to remind everyone that the energies of any transit, they have positive and negative potentials. And this particular new moon in Scorpio has some of the most amazing Sabian symbol unpack, the most amazing synchronicities in terms of if we wanted to just clear away a bunch of deep, dark, ugly muck, we could do it. We can do that with our own inner spiritual process, with our own ability to transmute emotions, to release emotions, and to rebirth ourselves into something new. The more of us that do that for ourselves, the greater potential we have in the wider world. And so this is, I feel, a very important new moon, one of really high potential. And I wish everybody the highest expression of these extremely potent energies. So until next time, you guys take care. Bye.